Wednesday Addams was released about a month ago, and it took the world at storm as the second most watched English language series on Netflix. So I thought it'd be fitting to rank the characters of Wednesday from best to worst. Just a note that I'll be mentioning certain spoilers, so be warned if you have not finished the season. I'll be ranking the characters more on the quality of their writing, acting, and character arcs, as opposed to just likability. After you watch the video, please let me know below if you agree, disagree. I'd love to hear all the opinions, and I really appreciate all the support. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the sub button to stay up to date with our latest movie reviews, tier lists, and film analyses. But without further delay, let's get right into this. Alright, so starting off first is Bianca Barclay, played by Joy Sunday. That rhymed. Bianca, at the beginning, she appears to be sort of this villainous kind of bully character. And honestly, I really do like her arc as we start to learn more about her past and they kind of reveal why she is the way she is. And she actually does change throughout the series. I think near the end, she actually ends up being more of an ally than a foe. Now, as far as the writing goes, I think that at times, I think that her story kind of fizzles out later on. They don't really go too much in depth. It kind of runs into the issue of having too many characters and too many things going on, in my opinion, the show, as much as I enjoyed it. But with that being said, I think her character arc kind of fizzles out, that you don't really see much of her later on. But I do really like the character arc, and I think Joy Sunday does a very good job. You end up kind of liking the character more than hating her, when at the beginning she was much more of a bully to Wednesday and everybody around her. She's super cocky, so kind of unlikable, but I like what they did with her. So I'm going to be putting her at a solid B+ tier. Next, we have Tyler Galpin, played by Hunter Doohan. What starts off as a sort of nice, timid kid kind of ends up being a villainous monster, of his doing or not. You know, that is up for debate. But honestly, I do think that this character is likable overall, you know, before you realize what he's done. And it's somebody that Wednesday can trust and somebody that Wednesday actually likes throughout the series, which is pretty rare for her. And it kind of acts as an unlocking, in a way, of sort of Wednesday's emotion. So I think as a character is very pivotal. The acting is pretty solid throughout. There's a couple of moments where, you know, it could have been better. That is one thing with the show, that the acting kind of goes up and down at some points. But overall, I think Hunter Doohan does a good job. Tyler, it's an intriguing character. I do like that they kind of take somebody outside of the Nevermore Academy. They do that throughout, but I think they really fixate more on him. He is the typical, as they call it in the show, normie. They literally use that term. So, you know, he's more of a normie type character, aka not like deranged or like vampire or anybody that's in the Nevermore, just a regular human. But it is overall a decent character. So, honestly, I'm going to be putting, my gut says B- B tier, you know, not B+, but yeah. Next is Marilyn Thornhill, played by Christina Ricci. Now, if you guys know, a little tidbit is that Christina Ricci actually played Wednesday Addams in previous iterations. So this was kind of cool to see her in this, and it was a bit of an Easter egg in a way. Now, for the majority of the series, you know, I did find her character pretty annoying. And to be honest, wasn't totally thrilled about the acting. I thought some of the delivery of some of her lines, it didn't really come off as authentic. And I know, you know, later on you realize she actually is the orchestrator behind this. But as she's playing up this nice act, I find myself kind of, you know, eye-rolling at times. She's overly nice, and she kind of comes across as annoying to me personally. But, you know, I actually like it when they reveal that she is the villain of this all. She did orchestrate all this. And then her true colors come out. Then I think, honestly, her acting kind of improves in that case. It really gets better. You know, nothing against the actress, but that's just one criticism I had for the character itself. And honestly, they kind of give it up. The way the character's written, you kind of are wondering, okay, so what's the point of this character? Because there's already a therapist. And there's also this teacher too, want the best for Wednesday. So it kind of, there's red flags already. And if they were a little more subtle with it, possibly could have been better. But honestly, I think this character had a lot of potential, but I am going to be putting her at the C tier. Next is Thing. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite characters in the show. It's a fan favorite, but I really did like the implementation of this, and it doesn't say a word, it's literally just a hand, but the way that they're able to have it communicate and do things and be this kind of helpful sidekick to Wednesday throughout the entire show is just great. I honestly was really entertained by the character. It has character. Again, the fact that they're able to make this hand have a personality and just be entertaining throughout, and kind of the way it tries to communicate with all the characters, I honestly found it very entertaining, and I do like it. Also, it's very unique and adds an element, and it sort of makes it more iconic, just the way it looks and the way it interacts with all the characters. And it plays a vital role. It actually is super helpful throughout. I would like a Thing to make me stuff in the kitchen, you know what I mean? Like, you can trust it. So because of that, I'm going to be putting Thing in the S tier, for sure. Oh, and this was the hand of Victor Dorobantu. I believe that's whose hand it was in the show. Next is Goody Addams, played by Jenna Ortega, which also plays Wednesday. Honestly, has about maybe 2-3 minutes of screen time throughout the entire show. So I can't really comment too much on the character, to be completely honest. And when she is in there, it doesn't necessarily add too much. It's supposed to be sort of setting up and premonition type of thing where, in the past it's a past ancestor and they kind of have this bond. And I thought the whole thing where she comes in and kind of heals her, found that like a little gimmicky, a little cheesy. But ultimately it kind of just plays as that inner link to the afterlife or a past life type thing. This is her ancestor, and to the character it is important, but honestly doesn't play a huge role, wouldn't have made too much of a difference. So because of that, I am going to be putting Goody Addams at the C tier. Next up, we have Dr. Valerie Kinbott, played by Riki Lindhome. Now, I have seen her in multiple projects. I have seen her in Garfunkel and Oates, I believe, is the name of the band. She's a big comedian. She does a good job here. I'm talking about the actress at the moment. But, as the therapist role, to be completely honest with you, she ends up kind of being wasted. It doesn't necessarily do too much to the show. She honestly, the character in the grand scheme of things, plays more as a decoy than an actual character that adds a lot to the show, personally. She acts well, and you kind of are interested to see if she can unlock, Wednesday as cold pan and as closed off as Wednesday is. You kind of wonder, is this therapist going to be able to get to her, right? That's kind of when you're introduced, that's where my mind was, are we going to see a different side to Wednesday because of this therapist? Maybe she's really good at her job. She just kind of ends up dying later on and plays as another character to just be sort of swindled by Wednesday, at the beginning, and then you realize, okay, well, Wednesday has to make it work with this therapist, but ultimately doesn't end up playing too much of a role. Again, acted well, but kind of wasted in the end, to be honest, in my opinion. So with that being said, I will be putting the Doctor at a C tier. Next we have Xavier Thorpe, played by Percy Hynes White. Now, what can we say about this character? To be completely honest, I'm just going to get the negative out of the way. Thought that the actor was weak in some parts. I felt that this was miscasted. Not a bad actor, not saying they're a bad actor, but with the lines that they had and some of the moments where he's kind of getting mad, or just the fact that he's getting kind of like accused of something that he didn't do, you would expect a little more, but the delivery for me, I am harping on the acting because that was something that stood out to me. Again, not saying that the acting is bad on this actor, that the acting is bad on the character, but rather I would have liked to see more. There's good moments and there's bad moments, and it does take away from the character. plays a sort of an initial love interest, and all signs point to him being the one that's doing all these murders and everything, and is behind this big monster. And it almost seems too obvious. They kind of shove it in your face. They could have been more subtle with it, but of course, with the mystery of it, they play on the fact that he is kind of shady, and he's also trying to figure out what's happening. But he ends up being an innocent. But again, they really are on the nose about this character and what he does throughout the series. And, honestly, it just... the acting does take a little bit away from the character. It is a vital role in the show, for sure. So I would have liked to see something different. But with that being said, I am going to be putting Xavier at the C tier as well. Next is Enid Sinclair, played by Emma Myers. Honestly, I really like this character. She's a super bubbly, perfect counterpart to Wednesday Addams. As a cold, deadpan kind of character, you have this quite the opposite of her. You have the polar opposite, and it happens to be her roommate. And honestly, I found her very entertaining. I could see how some people would find her annoying. I don't know. I thought she was very charming. I thought she was very entertaining to watch, very funny at times. She totally is the polar opposite of Wednesday, and it adds a lot to the Wednesday character. And because of that, Wednesday actually ends up sort of opening up because of that. And, as a character itself, I think that you have this underlying idea of her sort of being a disappointment, kind of not wolfing out, as she calls it, literally just becoming a wolf. Something stopped her. She wasn't able to do that. And, throughout the show, it's kind of an insecurity of hers as everybody around her, like, why is she different? Now, that is a little predictable because, as I already knew that, as soon as that was mentioned, later on she's gonna, like, wolf out. But, that doesn't take away too much the character. I found her entertaining. I honestly did. So Enid goes on the A tier. Next, we have Joseph Crackstone. Now, he gets conjured up, and his primary purpose is to just... oh, this is played by William Houston. His primary purpose is to just go in and kill all the outcasts, all the outliers in this case. Literally just clearing them out. That's his main purpose at the end of the show. Appears for one episode. Does a good job. William Houston does a good job. I think, honestly, there's not too much to say about the character. I think that perhaps I would have liked to see more of a bigger battle at the end. It was a little anticlimactic. I felt like they rushed it a little bit. Would have liked to see more of a battle because he seemed pretty strong overall. So the way they wrote him is that he has these kind of like he can lift stuff with his mind and stuff, and he's got these powers, but they aren't really used to the fullest effect. Seems to be defeated pretty easily, all things considered, which I thought was an oversight. But as a character, does a good job. Definitely had great makeup. Honestly, great prosthetics. They totally made him look old, decayed from centuries ago. So I did like that. But that doesn't do much. They could have done more with the character for sure. Gonna be putting it at the C tier. I'm putting a lot of these in the C tier. Hopefully, we'll have a little diversity coming up. All right, next up is Larissa Weems, played by Gwendoline Christie. Best known for her role. She's been around. She's been at Star Wars, Game of Thrones. She holds it down here. She's the principal of Nevermore. She's in charge. And at first she is a little shady, but she's a little sketchy, and then you kind of learn more about her character, her past, the past she has with the school, and you end up realizing, that she is on the same side as everyone else. And she's just... I like that they added the political aspect where she just wants the best, and unfortunately, as a lot of stuff happens, she ends up doing stuff she doesn't really want to do, or stuff to kind of throw things under the radar to keep her school up and keep her reputation high. And, you see that a lot with politics overall, but they kind of explore that a little bit. But ultimately, she ends up getting killed, and it does really hurt everybody. It does devastate even Wednesday. She's constantly going back and forth with her, but it's sad to see her get killed off because I thought the character was good. Sort of as that principal role and somebody that oversees the school and has her differences with Wednesday. I think it was an intriguing character. So I'll be putting the principal at A-, bordering on a B. Next we have Ajax, played by Georgie Farmer. Now, Ajax, there's not much to say about him. He is the love interest of Enid, and, they do eventually end up getting together. Ultimately, he seems like a good pairing for Enid, and I think that he's a likable character overall from the role that he does play. He doesn't do anything despicable. He kind of, backs away. Everybody does in the torture scene where Wednesday's gonna torture Tyler. They'd say, nope, not doing it. He's one of the first ones to say it, like, I'm drawing the line here. And everybody follows suit. But still, just something to keep in mind. But, I did like the character. Doesn't play a huge role, but ultimately, I would put Ajax at a B-, respectable. Next is your boy Eugene Odinger, played by Musa Mustafa. Yes, that is his last name. That's an awesome last name. Eugene, I liked Eugene. He's the outlier of the kids. He's of Nevermore. They're already outcasts, but he is the outcast of the outcasts. And it's unfortunate because honestly, he's that kind of nice, smart kid. He's a little nerdy, but he ends up being very helpful, and unfortunately he gets caught in the crossfire, and Wednesday feels really bad about it. He did not deserve that, but I like Eugene. He's very smart, he's very quirky, he's kind of that comic relief type character, and I like that they kind of add an element where he, controls the bees. That's his thing. He likes that, and that's pretty unique. I don't normally see stuff that are sort of implemented into shows like that. So, usually they have an interest like, he's like a bookworm, or he's like a nerd, he's just computers and stuff. But now his thing is bees. So I thought that was a nice change of pace. And that does play a role later on. But one gripe I would say about Eugene, I would put him in the A tier, but unfortunately, later on, there's a couple of scenes where the actor kind of doesn't sell some of the lines, unfortunately. Overall, not bad, but later on, I was a little, it could have been better. They could have closed out his story a little better as well. So, because of that, I'm going to be putting him at the B+ tier. But again, a solid character, would consider A- maybe. Next, we have Sheriff Donovan Galpin, played by Jamie McShane. Now, this is the dad of Tyler, and he's a reoccurring character. He is pretty much one step behind Wednesday a lot of the time. He's trying to figure out what is happening in this town. He's the sheriff. He's the Hopper type, right? He's just trying to figure out what exactly is happening. There's murders happening, and he knows something's up. He knows this isn't just your typical sort of serial killer or whatever. This is something more, and he knows it's connected to Nevermore. So his main role is to kind of figure out, investigate, and just what is happening in his town. I like it. I respect the character. I honestly like the interactions he has with Wednesday, and honestly, he seems like a loyal character, and troubled as well, because they kind of briefly touch on the fact that he misses his wife, and he struggles trying to connect with his son, right? He struggles. One thing I would have liked to see more of is perhaps more into how he feels about his son becoming this monster. I know he shoots at him later on in the show and everything, but I would have liked to see maybe more remorse. I feel like they could have had a more touching scene with that. Not to like bring down the mood, but that would have been pretty good. It would have given the character even more of a dynamic as well. I do think the character's very solid, and as the show goes on, he starts to realize, Wednesday might be on something. But I like this running gag where she's always caught in something. Like, she is always a problem, and he's always like, okay, what now? He always knows she's attached to problems. And, eventually he just kind of gives up. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm used to this now. I'm not even going to ask anymore. But I like this character. I'm going to be putting the sheriff at the A tier, A-. Next, we have Morticia Addams, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. Doesn't play too much of a role. Shows up at the beginning, shows up at the midpoint. plays Morticia very well. She really sells it. I think she's really entertaining on the screen. Has that kind of vibrato about her. She's pretty out there. She's kind of full of herself, completely into Gomez as well. That's how it's always been, in the Addams family. But she plays it, and I think she totally sells it as well. She's entertaining on the screen. She has good chemistry with the other characters. And there's just something slightly off about her that just catches the same vibe of the Morticia Addams from the past as well. So I thought she held it down as well. I'm going to be putting Morticia at A tier. Next, we have Uncle Fester, played by Fred Armisen. Now, not the first person I would have thought that would be playing Uncle Fester, but he holds it down. He is that annoying, sort of high-pitched character, has a childlike wonder about him, yet he's just as mischievous and slimy and sleazy as any of the other characters in the Addams family as well. So, he's always up to something. He's always scheming. That's his thing. But honestly, I think Fred Armisen does a good job with him overall. I was entertained, and he is mysterious, and he does kind of play the role of the helper throughout. He shows up way later on, the last 2-3 episodes, as that's when he appears. But honestly, I was entertained overall. Again, he could be a little annoying at times, but hey, that's his character. But I'm gonna be putting Uncle Fester at the B+ tier. I think that feels right. Next, we have Gomez Addams, played by Louis Guzman. I've seen Louis in a lot of things. How does he play as Gomez? Not bad. Not bad. You do feel for him. It's a complex character. I like that they kind of clear his name later on, and you kind of believe it. This is something that he would do. I would have liked to see maybe more of him in the show, to be honest, but I think that they do give him his piece of the pie, as well as Morticia as well. But they do give him his segment, and he does clear his name eventually. So overall, Louis does a good job. Overall, there's a couple moments he could have been stronger, but I wouldn't say as entertaining or as good as Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, but it does complement her well. I'm going to be putting him at the B+ tier as well. Next, we have Pugsley Addams, played by Isaac Ordonez. Now, Pugsby virtually has no role in the show at all. But the actor does capture the sense of sibling love that he has for Wednesday, even though he knows Wednesday can be, a certain way, and she's totally self-centered, and she's, at least on the outside, she is. And, she's like, at the beginning of the show, she's like, look, you gotta fend for yourself. I'm not gonna be able to stop you. You're a coward. You gotta get that together. Pretty much what she tells him at the beginning. And, he appears later on, and then you don't see him again. But I did like, for the moments that he is in the show, it does have a good dynamic with Wednesday. But, Pugsley is Pugsley, and there's not too much to say about him and his antics. So, they could have added him in more for comic relief, but I do think the show was saturated as it is, so they didn't want to explore too much into that. But with that being said, I will be putting Pugsley at a high C tier. I think that, it doesn't play a huge role. That's one of the reasons why, and, it's just there to continue the Addams name. Next, we have Rowan Laszlo, played by Colin Ross. At the beginning of the show, you think that this character is going to play a vital role in the show, and then they kind of just die off, and they're never really seen again. And it is a little interesting that they did that. Really not much to say about him. He's sort of this weird kid, and he's up to something. And the actor, Callum Ross, has a sort of villainous look to him. I think he plays the role well. But ultimately, his story is one that is mostly just spoken about by word of mouth for the rest of the show. He's in a few episodes, but eventually he does just kind of disappear. And, not super memorable. As a character that is mentioned throughout, is not super memorable. And I think that partly has to do with some of the writing and some of the acting as well of the character. But it's mainly the screen time as well. to blame. So because of that, I'm going to be putting C, just straight C tier. Next, we have Yoko Tanaka, played by Naomi Ogawa. Quite frankly, I don't know why this character is on this tier list, to be honest. As one of the vampires and one of the students of Nevermore, I think she kind of plays this sort of a henchman kind of type, and honestly, it's not super memorable. I'm trying to remember. I just watched it. I'm trying to remember what her main role was in the show, but she is on the vampire team, and she kind of does help out, but not a huge role. There's really not much I could say about it. Forgive me if you know this was a vital character or a fan favorite, but as far as everything that I saw, I wasn't hugely integrated into the storyline at all. So because of that, I'm going to be putting her at the C tier. And finally, we have Wednesday Addams, played by Jenna Ortega, the lady of the hour in this case. Now, honestly, I think she blew it out of the park. It was perfect casting. She is 20. Jenna Ortega is 20 years old, but she looks like she's the age of Wednesday Addams. And man, does she play this character extremely well. You believe it from the beginning. Every single line that she says, if you don't cast the right person, all those lines would be cheesy, but she sells it very well. A very well-written character, very complex. Underneath her deadpan, expressionless, very emo expressions that she uses, very, very just dark things. She's always sleazing. That's what makes her charming, though. That's what makes you enthralled, captivated by her performance, and the character is that she is so sort of dark. Literally, she wears all black. She has black hair. Her eyes might as well just be black. With that being said, behind all that, behind all the layers, behind all the selfishness, she has very little bouts of emotion. She's absolutely serious, absolutely monotone. But you can't look away, and you love the interactions that she has with all the characters. She is never phased. Only one thing is on his deathbed will you see like a little glimpse of her panic, but other than that, she's just cold, stone cold. But do you like her for that? And to be honest with you, again, maybe I'm nitpicking. There are some consistency issues with the character. I don't think that she would ever get with anybody at the Nevermore school. Granted, let me tell you, it's a complex character. There's a lot going on in her head, way more than she leads it out to be, and that's kind of what they explore later on. She doesn't like hugs, but she likes Enid. She liked the principal. She likes Tyler. She likes these people. She even likes Bianca to a certain extent, right? Even though she's bullying, but at the end of the day, she doesn't really show any of that. That kind of adds to the complexities of her character. But I honestly really did think that she was a great character, very well acted as well. Jenna Ortega does a very good job. Other than a few lines being cheesy and some inconsistencies here and there with how she would behave, ultimately I will be putting her at the S tier, S minus A plus. If I could put it somewhere between there, some people might think S is too high. Lowest I would put her A plus. That's where originally I was gonna put her, but talking about her, I do think she belongs next to Thing. It does look like she's raising her hand with the big Thing hand right there. But anyways, here's my tier list. Let me know below if you agree, if you disagree. Let me know, what do you think of Wednesday? I might be making a review on it soon, but look out for that with all my thoughts. But thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.